Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Uma Suresh and I teach at VVS GJPU College, Kuvempu Nagar, Mysore. I would first like to thank the Mysore District PU Chemistry Lecturers Forum for giving me this opportunity to present the topic quantum mechanical model of an atom. So let us begin with this. So in the earlier part of the chapter that is the structure of the atom, we have been looking at how the structure of the atom was deduced. That is, we talked about the discovery of electrons, the discovery of protons, neutrons, and the basic particles which are present in the atom. And based on this, numerous people have proposed the structure of the atom, proposed a structure of the atom. The first model was proposed by Thomson, J.J. Thomson, where he considered the atom to be a ball of positive charges on which the electrons were embedded. But this model could not explain the line spectra of the hydrogen. It could not explain the line spectra of the hydrogen. Hence, the next model was proposed by Rutherford after he completed his experiments, that is the famous gold foil experiment, and he proposed that the mass of the atom is concentrated in the center and all the positive charges were present in that center and that region, and he called that region as the nucleus, and he said that the electrons were constantly rotating around the nucleus, but he did not give any path regarding the movement of electrons. And the major drawback of the Rutherford's model was that it could not explain the stability of an atom. So therefore, after a few years, the Bohr's model was proposed by Niels Bohr, where he considered the atom to be a spherical to be circular in shape, and the mass is concentrated in the center, but he said that the electrons were moving around the nucleus in fixed paths or in a definite path, which he called them as orbits. But there was a problem with Bohr's model, or there were some drawbacks in this model. So therefore there was a need to propose or to get a new model for the atom, and therefore the quantum mechanical model of the atom was proposed. But before we go into the details of this quantum mechanic model, I would like to first look at the drawbacks of the Bohr's model, or just go back and recollect the drawbacks of Bohr's model, so that the need for the quantum mechanical model becomes easier. Why it was necessary for the development of the new model? The first drawback was it considered electrons to be moving in well-defined paths. There was a particular path and the electrons were revolving around in that particular path. The second drawback was it could not account for the dual nature of electron. That means it could not account for the wave nature as well as the particle nature of electrons. Then it could not explain the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. What is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle? It is impossible to determine simultaneously the position and the velocity or the momentum of a subatomic molecule. But the Bohr's model could not explain Heisenberg's principle, or in other words, it went against Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, because he is defining, he said it is a definite path, therefore you can find out its position. So that was the third drawback. The fourth drawback was it could not explain Zeeman effect and the Stark effect. What is Zeeman effect? It is the splitting of the line spectra under the influence of a magnetic field. Each line split into two other lines. Therefore, Bohr's model could not explain that, why those two lines were present in that single line. And the Stark effect is the splitting of the line spectra under the influence of current or under the influence of electricity. So your Bohr's model could not explain Zeeman effect and the Stark effect. The other important drawback was it could explain only the spectra of atoms which contained only one electron. For example, it could explain only the line spectra of hydrogen or lithium plus or lithium plus, etc. And the last point is that it could not explain the fine spectra of atoms which had more than one electron or even a single electron. That is similar to your Zeeman effect and your Stark effect. So therefore, because of these drawbacks, the need for the new model was required. But when you look at the previous models, all of them are based on the classical mechanics. It is based on classical mechanics, that is your Newton's law of motion. Therefore, now you have to propose a model where all the drawbacks can be explained. The new model should be able to explain what all the Bohr's model could not explain. So in this regard, there is a need for the new model, and in this new model, the quantum mechanics or the wave nature as well as the particle nature of the subatomic particles is considered, and that model based on the quantum mechanics is what is called as the quantum mechanic model of the atom. And this was developed by this model was proposed by Erwin Schrödinger, a Swedish scientist, and he obtained the Nobel Prize for this in the year 1933. He obtained a Nobel Prize for this in the year 1933. So when he developed a model, so what did he develop? He developed a model means he gave a mathematical equation which related the dual nature of the electron, that is, it related the wave nature and the particle nature of the electron to the energy, and that equation is what is called as the Schrödinger's equation. It's called as the Schrödinger's equation. Anyway, I'll give you the equation in the next slide. Now in this, so when you consider in Schrödinger's wave equation, the electrons are treated as waves, and there is in this equation you have the quantization of energy. That means each orbital you can have only a particular energy. Okay, and the equation is as follows. So this is the famous Schrodinger's wave equation. Now E gives you the energy of the electron, and the value, and this psi is known as the wave function. E is the energy and psi is known as psi is known as the wave function. E is the energy of the electron. E is the energy of the electron. So when the wave equation is solved, the solution gives and this equation he derived it for the hydrogen atom. So when this equation is solved, the solutions what you obtain gives the possible energies levels which the electron in the hydrogen atom can have. This electron, the energy levels which the electrons in the hydrogen atom can have, and that is called as the eigen values. EIGEN, it is called as the eigen values, while psi is the corresponding value for psi is called as the eigen function, or it is called as the wave function. So this particular energy levels or the eigen values and the eigen functions are characterized by a set of numbers, and these numbers are called as the quantum numbers. These numbers are called as the quantum numbers. So this is the wave. In the wave equation you have seen the psi, so that gives you the wave function. And what about this psi square? The psi square, the squaring the value wave equation or the wave function, it gives us the probability of finding the electron, or gives us the region where the probability of finding the electron is maximum. Finding the electron is maximum. Okay, so this is what we were talking about. When you solve the equations, whatever energies you get a set of values and for the energies, and those values are called as orbital, and each orbital gives us the spatial distribution of electron density. Okay, let us look into the differences between orbit and orbital. An orbit represents a planar motion of the electron or a two-dimensional motion of the electron, while an orbital represents the three-dimensional motion of the electron around the nucleus. An orbit is circular in shape, while the orbitals can have different shapes. They can be spherical, dumbbell shape they can have, or they can have a double dumbbell shape. Now the orbit is a well defined path, but while an orbital is a three-dimensional region in space, is not a path, particular path, it is a complete region around the nucleus. An orbit cannot explain, if you have an concept of orbit, it cannot explain the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, or you cannot apply Heisenberg's uncertainty principle to an orbit. But to an orbital, you can apply the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. An orbit can accommodate a maximum of 2 into n square electrons in its shells, while only 2 electrons can be accommodated in an orbital. So these are the basic differences between an orbit and an orbital. So this can be a question in your, it is an important question from the examination point of view. So let us go back to our quantum numbers. Now, as I have told you earlier, a quantum the energy, the values or the eigenfunctions and the wave functions are characterized by a set of 4 numbers, which you call them as the quantum numbers. But in the beginning it was only 3 quantum numbers. Later the 4th quantum number was introduced. So let us look into each of the quantum numbers and their significance one after the other. The first quantum number is the principal quantum number, which is denoted by the letter n. It is denoted by the letter n. This quantum number describes the main energy level to which the electron belongs. It describes the main energy level to which the electron belongs. It also gives the size of the orbital. It also gives the size of the orbital. The principal quantum number n can have values which are all whole numbers, and these can have values from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to infinity. They can have values up to infinity. The second quantum number is called as the azimuthal quantum number. It is denoted by the letter L. It defines the shape of the orbital. So the main significance of the azimuthal quantum number is that it gives the shape of the orbital. Then actually this azimuthal quantum number is also called as the angular momentum quantum number, since it also gives the value for the angular momentum of the electron for that particular orbit. The values which L can have are from 0 to n minus 1, are from 0 to n minus 1. So by using the value of L, the shape of the orbital and the type of orbital can be explained or can be given. So let us see. If the value of, suppose the value of L is 0, then the type of orbital, you call that orbital is called as the s orbital, and the shape of the s orbital is that it has a spherical shape. It has a spherical shape. If the value of L is 1, if the value of L is 1, then that orbital is a p orbital. It is a p orbital, and p orbitals have a Dumbbell shape. Now the shapes I will be explaining to you later. If the value of L is 2, if the value of L is 2, then it is a d orbital, then it is a d orbital, and d orbitals have a double Dumbbell shape. And if the value of L is 3, then it is an f orbital, and the shape of f orbitals is very, very complex. So it is not within the syllabus what we are doing at this level. So let us see from how you can have the different values of L for different values of n. Now if you look at this here, if the value of n is 1, the possible value of L is going to be only 0, okay, and hence it is going to be an 1s orbital. If the value of n is 2, then L can have 0 and 1. It can have 0 and 1. If n is equal to 3, then the values L can have is going to be 0, 1 and 2. While if the value of n is 4, L can have 0, 1, 2 and 3. So if n is equal to 1, L is equal to 0, then it is an 1s orbital. If n is equal to 2 and the value of L is again 0, then it is a 2s orbital. If the value of n is 2 while the value of L is 1, then it is a 2p orbital. Similarly, so therefore from here you can say, now we don't have the existence of 1p orbital, we have only s orbital in the main shell of when the value of n is going to be 1. Similarly, you cannot have a d orbital if the principal quantum number is 2. Why? Because you can have only 2 values for L. But on the other hand, if the value of n is 3, there are 3 possible values for L. It is, you have 0, you have 1 and you have 2. So therefore you have a 3s orbital, you have a 3p orbital and you have a 3d orbital. Now you can also say why you don't have a 3f orbital. You don't have a 3f orbital. You have only a 4f orbital here. Okay. Now the third quantum number is the magnetic quantum number. Now this magnetic quantum number was proposed to explain why the line spectra splits in the presence of a magnetic field, why it splits into in the presence of a magnetic field. So therefore in the presence of a magnetic field, the electrons are going to be oriented in the 3 different directions what we are going to see. Now therefore, and each orbital is going to have a subshell within it. It is going to have a subshell within it. So if the magnetic quantum number is denoted by ML, it is denoted by letter M, or it is also denoted by ML. So the values what this quantum number can have ranges from minus L to plus L. It ranges from minus L to plus L. So therefore with this you can, with the values of L, you can describe the presence, or you can explain the presence of the different orientations of the orbitals or the different subshells which are going to be present, okay. So therefore I'll just go back to the other slide here, okay. So now let us look at this. Now these again to the same slide, I have come over again to the same slide here. Now look at this value, let us look at this, the first value. If n is equal to 1, as I have told earlier, L can be only 0. So therefore it is a 1s subshell. So since the value of L is 0, M can have only 0. So therefore you have only one type of orientation in an s orbital, or it has a symmetrical orientation in all the 3 directions, because a sphere is symmetrical in all the 3 directions. The same thing if suppose n is equal to 2, the values what L can have is going to be 0 and it can have 1, isn't it? So therefore, if it is 0, again it is an M can have only one value which is going to be 0. So you have only one s orbital here. But if L is equal to 1, then M can have 0, it can 1, 0 and minus 1. So there are 3 orbitals in that particular subshell which are P. So if it is a 2p subshell, then you can have Px, 2px, 2py and 2pz. Similarly, for when you have n is equal to 3 and L is equal to 1, again you have 1, M values M can have is going to be 1, 0 and minus 1. So again you have 3 orbitals. So you have 3px, 3py and 3pz. Now let us look at the number of orbitals if L is going to be 2. If L is going to be 2, M can have the values 2, 1, 0, minus 1 and minus 2. So totally you will have 5 d orbitals. So you have 3 number, 3 quantity, 3 p orbitals and 5 d orbitals. Similarly, now let us come to this part here. When n is equal to 4, L can have 0, 1, 2, 3. So you have 4s, 4p and 4d. So you have 4px, 4py, 4pz. Similarly, you will have 4d xy, 4d yz, 4d zx, 4d z square, 4d x square minus y square. We will talk about that later. Now when L is equal to 3, then what are the values which M can have? M can have 3, 2. So it is minus plus L to minus L. L is 3. So plus 3, plus 2, 1, 0, minus 1, minus 2 and minus 3. So totally how many orbitals are there in that subshell? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 orbitals which can be present in that particular subshell, So this is so these orbitals will have different orientations. Now because of the different orientations, when you put the line spectra is exposed to a magnetic field, you can see the fine structure, or there is going to be the splitting of the lines. It is going to be splitting of the lines. Now these orbitals are of equal energies. All these 7 orbitals in the 4f shell, or the 5 orbitals in the 4d shell, or the 3 orbitals in the 4p shell or 2p shell, or in the 3p shell, they are of equal energies. And these energies, that is in the absence of any external field, they are going to be of equal energies, and they are called as the degenerate orbitals. Okay, so this is the same thing. Now in the 1920s, they said that the electrons in a particular orbit cannot have the same energy levels, and also when the line spectra is exposed to an electrical field, the lines are going to be you will have the presence of or the splitting of the line into two lines. And it was seen that in single line, in the line spectra, actually it was a doublet, or they were triplet of lines. You had very small, you have very, very closely placed lines. Now to explain that, the spin quantum number was proposed. The spin quantum number was proposed. So in this spin quantum number, it gives us the spinning, the direction in which the electron spins. Now we know that the electron is going to rotate around the nucleus. So therefore the electron can rotate around the nucleus either in the clockwise direction, or it can rotate in the anti-clockwise direction. It can rotate in the clockwise direction, or it can rotate in the anti-clockwise direction, and this is denoted by the letter S, or it is also denoted by the letter MS, where S is the subscript. The values what S can have is going to be plus half, and it is going to be minus half. The values what S can have is going to be only plus half. If it is going to be if the electron rotates in the clockwise direction, and it will be minus half, which is going to be if the electron rotates in the anti-clockwise direction. So therefore because of this, what happens is that no two electrons in an orbital can have the same energy, or it cannot have the same quantum number. So all the four set of quantum numbers cannot be the same. Hence they will differ at least in their spin quantum number. Okay, so this is the same thing what I was talking about. Now let us discuss in detail the shape of the orbitals. Now the shape of the orbitals is determined by the value of L. So if it is an S orbital, the value of L is going to be 0. It has a spherical shape. So as the value of n, can you see 1s, 2s and 3s. So as the value of n increases, the size of the sphere or the radius of the sphere is also going to increase. So whether you take an 1s orbital, a 2s orbital or a 3s orbital, the radius of all of them are going to have a spherical shape. So now how do you get that spherical shape, or how can we say that the s orbital is a spherical shape? So when I told you about the probability or psi square, when the beginning of the quantum mechanics, where you have the psi or the eigen function, but what does eigen function give us? It gives us the probability of the region where the finding of electron is maximum. So when the value of psi square is plotted against the distance from the nucleus or the radius of the orbital, you can see that it starts decreasing. You can see here. So as you come closer and closer, it is far away, the probability of finding that the electron is going to decrease. But as you come closer and closer, that is r is the distance from the nucleus. So as you are going closer and closer to the nucleus, okay, suddenly the probability of finding the electron is going to increase, okay, and you will have a region where the probability of finding the electron is going to be 0. It will be completely 0. So you can see here in this graph, it is increasing and then again it is going to decrease. So you have one region in that particular orbit where the finding of electron is maximum, and the region where the finding of the electron is going to be 0, okay, it will be 0. Can you see here? It will be 0. Sorry, that region is called as the node. It is called as the node. So if the value of n is, if you know the value of n, you can calculate the number of nodes by using the equation number of nodes is equal to n minus 1. So for a 2s orbital, you will see that you have one node, this node here, or this white region where the probability of finding the electron is 0. Can you see here? While you have two regions, that is 1s, here it corresponds to 1s, and then you have the 2s orbital. So when you plot the graph of psi square against the distance from the nucleus of r, that gives us the shape of the orbital here. Okay. Now for the p orbitals, so this is the picture what we get when you plot the graph of psi square against the radius. Okay, so you have the regions here. Okay, can you see here? These two regions are the nodes where the probability of finding the electron is 0. But if you look at along the x-axis, here this region is the region where you have the probability of finding the electron is maximum. So this is the region, three-dimensional region. This is also the three-dimensional region. So on a paper, you can represent it like this, which is called as, it has a dumbbell shape. Okay, it is in the dumbbell shape. So this is along the x direction. The same thing you are going to have along the y direction, and you will have it along the z direction. Okay, so this is along the x direction, this is along the y direction, and this is along the z direction. So you are going to have three orientation, which you call it as the px, py and pz. So in any direction you have the shape of the orbital. For a p orbital, it is a dumbbell shape. This is called as a dumbbell shape. Okay, so this is another way of representing it. This is another way of representing it. So pz, px, py and pz. Now whenever you are asked in the exam, sometimes the question comes asking you to draw the diagram of the p orbital. So you have to remember that you have to mention the coordinates. Just without writing the coordinates, that is the x, y and z axis, you have to mention. Otherwise it's not the right answer, it is not the correct answer. So therefore it is important that you mention the direction. So pz, it will be along the z direction, px is along the x direction, and py is along the y direction. So here I just wanted to show the node of planar node. What is a node? It has a planar node, so you have the region where the finding the electron is going to be 0. Okay. So again here we are discussing about the value of L and M. So you have a p subshell which has 3 orbitals. I think it's just a repetition what we had done earlier. Okay, so this is the shape of d orbitals. If you see, it has a double dumbbell shape. The 4 of them have a double dumbbell shape, while only the dz square has a different shape. The second dumbbell is in the shape of a donut here. It is in the shape of a donut. So you can see here. So because it is placed along the this is a yz direction. Okay, this is z x direction, this is xy direction, and this is x square minus y square. Okay, this also you have to be careful when you are drawing the diagram. You need to mention about the axis. Okay, now whenever coming to the energy levels, so as we move away from the nucleus. As we move away from the nucleus, the orbitals are going to have higher energy levels. Therefore, 1s orbital is closest to the nucleus, 2s comes next, then comes 3s, n is equal to 3, 4s, it goes on like that. So 1s orbital has the lowest energy, then 2s comes next, and the 2p, then you have 3s, 3p and 3d. Now when you have a single electron, okay, so now they are going to have equal energies. So you have these orbitals will have equal energies. So therefore they are called as degenerate orbitals. They are called as degenerate orbitals. But in a and the energy levels increase in this order: 1s less than 2s, which is equal to 2p, then you have 3s equal to 3p equal to 3d, and this is the case only in a single electron system, just like your hydrogen atom. But what happens in the case of multi-electron systems? What happens in the multi-electron systems? Now when you have a multi-electron, so all these orbitals are going to be occupied by electrons. Now we know that the like charges will repel each other, and all the electrons are negatively charged. So as more and more electrons get filled up in the degenerate orbitals, there is going to be repulsion between the electrons, and this causes the degenerate orbitals to split up into different energy levels. And this is, you bear it in mind, this is for a multi-electron system, and this is how the energy levels increase. So you have 1s, then you have 2s, 2p, 3s, 3p, 4s, 3d and 4p. It goes on like that. So now this order is necessary for us. We should know this order to explain to explain the filling up of orbitals, or to explain how the electrons are going to be present in an atom.